Welcome everyone to Balancing Act. I'm Linda Wilson here with my friend and collaborator Sam McEwen and our guest Dr. Vicki Sauder. How you doing today?
Doing great. How are you all
Awesome.
doing?
Awesome. And
Fantastic.
I'm gonna put Vicki
I,
over here where we
I
can.
had my morning adjustment, so I'm doing great.
Awesome. Yay.
That's
We
right.
made
You
I,
it to
did
the
go to the
weekend.
chiropractor today.
I go to the chiropractor. I've probably been going since 1976, 77, maybe a little bit later.
That's
Dr. Vicki takes
longevity
care of me
there.
when I get out of whack, so she
Yeah,
puts me
we,
back
we do a
together
few
again.
adjustments here and there. And, I have a wide variety of people. Some come in when they're in pain. Some people do monthly maintenance. And I do dog chiropractic too. So, we have all kinds of different scenarios going on.
Yeah.
And
But
talk a little
dog
bit about
chiropractic is
sorry.
interesting to me.
Yeah.
But
Talk a little bit about you do cold laser fusion. Is that correct?
the cold laser.
Yeah.
So that was introduced to me by Dr. Jeff Spencer, who I went to a seminar to go meet him actually back in the late 90s because he was an Olympian and he was working with different Olympic teams and the Tour de France. And I thought, oh, I'm going to go pick his brain. And I went to a seminar and he was using cold laser for fantastic pain management and inflammatory uh, problems in the body. It's light therapy. And so I ended up walking away with one laser. And then within 3 weeks, I had a second. And I ended up with 6 in my Iowa clinic. It was fantastic. And it's morphed into a huge um, therapy that is used for brain balance, for any type of balance in the body, whether it be immune or detox. Uh, it's huge.
Is that so most chiropractors do that, or a lot of chiropractors, or where would one go
Well,
for?
it's interesting because a lot of chiropractors will use it for point and shoot type of problems. So if you have a knee problem, they'll use it over the injured area for reducing inflammation and increasing blood flow. But it has so many more advanced uses that I've been doing for quite some time. But I was one of the first people that started to use it in my Iowa clinic. And then I brought it with me here, and I've switched to some different laser that is much more powerful than the one that I used back in Iowa. But it's very sophisticated tool these days.
It's pretty
Takes
neat
some special
actually.
training.
Uh, yeah, I've developed my own protocols because I've been doing it for so long. So I work with a couple different companies, and we have worked on some new protocols, and I have my own protocols in my settings. And so I also train other practitioners,
Okay.
mainly veterinarians, on how to use it.
That's pretty cool. Um, she's held my sciatic area for on and off for quite a while, and when it gets unhappy, I go see her, and she makes it happy again,
That's the
and it's
goal.
wonderful. I may have to come see you again. I've been sitting a lot.
Well, it's true. It's things will flare up, and
Yep.
depending on what you're doing, and that's kind of how it goes because we
Yeah.
are
Yep.
active individuals.
I try to do some maintenance with it. Like I went in today, but I also know that I have an event this weekend with the chamber, and I will be on my feet and running through uneven ground or walking fast through uneven ground for almost the entire weekend. And so I have another appointment Monday morning. So
That's great. You're
yeah,
on top of it.
I try to stay on top of it.
Yeah,
I think
that's
there's so much in outside of I don't know, I don't want to call it conventional medicine, but going to the primary care and going to the specialists and stuff like that. I think there's so much outside of that, and chiropractic was probably what got me interested in alternative medicine, alternative lifestyle, and stuff like that. Just because I saw what it did for me. I mean, when I was 20, well, back in the 70s, when I went to chiropractor the first time, I was told I needed back surgery.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and if I'd had back surgery back then, I'd probably be on a walker with canes or in a wheelchair, because it just wasn't near as sophisticated as it is now. And I refused to have it done. And Doc Richards in Rock Springs, Wyoming, is where I started, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, it changed my life.
And we hear stories like that every day in this profession. And I, I had the option to go into physical therapy at the time, and I actually the direction I took was to be a veterinarian, and then that changed rather quickly because I knew it wasn't in the cards for me to put animals to sleep, and it was kind of an aha moment where I was like, oh, I need to switch directions here. So
Yeah.
I ended up and I laugh about it now. I defaulted to chiropractic school, but it ended up changing my life
Right.
for the better.
Yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
education for years and years and years, admin at the college level. So this was quite a change for me back in the 90s.
And she is so good at what she does. She's
Well, thank you.
She's very personable. She's very understanding. What I like about her is typical chiropractor. I have a hard time when they crack the ribs, do the neck thing, and she does that very gently when she has to do it. But my first real go with chiropractic was a guy that used I don't know what they call them. They're like a punch thing.
Oh, an activator.
Yeah, because then he could do that and he wouldn't have to crack my neck, or he wouldn't have to crack my rib cage. And I don't know about anybody else, but if somebody comes around behind me and puts their arms around me under my arms and says, now just relax, and then they put their hands up here, I'm not going to relax.
It's ridiculous when we try to get people to relax. They finally do, but
it's hard, and
it is hard.
It is.
And the sound scares me, so I much prefer the laser part of it.
I have a tendency when they're working on my neck, because it goes out quite a bit, and I've had migraines for years off and on. But when he gets to that point, I know that if I wiggle my toes, I'll relax.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Richards told me that years ago. He said, just wiggle your toes. Think about wiggling your toes. Boom, 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 and then boom, just like that. So I still do that 30, 40 years later, 50 years later. So,
yeah, I never think to wiggle my toes, but I never think to wiggle my toes.
Well, I condition myself that way. So talk to us about the dog chiropractic. How does that work?
So I use an activator, which is a light adjusting instrument that Linda was referring to earlier that kind of clicks, and we adjust full spine with that. It's not a manual adjusting.
Okay.
There are chiropractors out there that do manual adjusting for animals, but I like the activator method because number one, you can get it done fairly quickly and you address the full spine. So there may be things that aren't problems currently that you're dealing with, but there's always compensation. So this will kind of resolve those as well. So then we have less problems to deal with as the dog ages, because the average age probably of all my dogs that I adjust are probably 7 when they start to get that age, and then they start to develop arthritic conditions from chronic inflammation, and running around like crazy dogs when they're younger adds up.
Yeah. So you mentioned you use the laser, the cold laser on them also?
Yeah, under a veterinarian, their license. I'm not licensed to do that, but when a veterinarian has recommended it, then I can use the cold laser. So yeah, and it's really helpful for reducing inflammation and getting things flowing and reducing that pain.
Does that help with the dysplasia as well?
Hip dysplasia, it sure does. The adjustment is super helpful for that. I see a lot of that actually.
I was going to
German
say the large
Shepherds are,
dogs get that quite a
yeah,
bit.
German Shepherds in particular. I see
Right.
quite a few of those, and Great Pyrenees.
Oh yeah, the big ones.
Mm-hmm. There are always the big dogs, it seems like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
and
super fun.
Yeah, Vicki has a Weimaraner who is just adorable. His name is Moose.
Yeah, he's a character. He keeps me on my toes.
And
what's that?
They kind of have a tendency towards dysplasia too, don't they? They're pretty good sized dogs.
They do, and Moose was a street dog before I got him, so we don't really know much about how he came to be in the Weim Rescue, where I adopted him from here in Denver. But he didn't have much fur, so he was in really rough shape, and I knew he wasn't going to be adoptable. So when I got him, immediately changed his diet and put him on really good food, and his fur's grown back, and he looks like a completely different dog. He's super cute.
He's adorable.
You know, you mentioned something there that when it comes to our bodies and the way we take care of them, we know what we're supposed to eat. We know what we're not supposed to eat, you know, and how to take care of our bodies. But I think sometimes we, you know, oh yeah, that dog food's just fine, or this dog food's just fine, and stuff like that. But if you read the ingredients, it's not. It's not.
It is not.
So, yeah.
No, it's not what they eat at all.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. I'm just.
They're not plant based. They're dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, they're dogs, right?
Dogs are carnivores, and they need to have, and they give them grains and all kinds of fillers in some of the kibble, because I don't really do kibble. I do raw feed. I have since I had Casper, which was my dog that I had. He passed away in 16, I think. And then I got Ranger, and he came with a host of problems, and I put him on raw right away, and it just cleared up a lot of the issues. We still had some issues to deal with, but for the most part, that'll fix a lot of stuff just with diet.
Yeah.
Is there a specific brand out there or raw food out there that you would recommend?
Well, Raw and Company is a local company here that I use. They are based out of Commerce City, and they have a warehouse, and their food is good sourced. So some of the raw feed that you see like at PetSmart that's in the coolers is not great. It should be a good source, and it's local. So I like to support local companies.
Sure.
So that I've been doing that since I had Ranger.
So, you know, I don't know where all of us on here are you know, pet lovers, and I imagine we have quite a few in the community. But how would, because I have an issue with both my dogs. They're picky.
Mm-hmm.
We've been told by the vet to feed this or that, or you know, move some stuff around. I tried making my own food for a while. They really, you know, I'm a pretty good cook, and they didn't like the dog food. But anyway, what would a person look for? You know, how would I know what to buy here in Florida? You know, if I was up by you, I could go to that company there. What's the first thing I should look for?
Well, you want a good source of protein, so you want it to be organic. So that's important. There's not a lot of fillers. So in the food that I feed Moose, it's it's all ground up. It looks like hamburger that you would buy at the store.
Okay.
And it's got cartilage, it's got bone, it's got liver, and it's got obviously the protein, but you can get all different types of protein. So some dogs, they say, are allergic to chicken, which a lot of times it's the source of the chicken that it is the problem because of all the fillers and everything else that's in there. Even if you go into the store and buy regular chicken and it's not organic or grass-fed beef, there's a huge difference between all of that. And the beef that I get is grass-fed, and the chicken is organic. And I also get turkey, but they offer bison. they have elk, they have all kinds of different proteins at
Okay.
Raw and Company. So I'm sure there's other companies out there that most of the stuff comes from Texas.
Okay. Well, that's not that far away.
No, not really. And it's shipped up there, and then they produce it there, and then they put it in tubes, and then I just go and it comes frozen, and I just cut it up in baggies, and I give him, I make bone broth for him too. So that's a
Okay.
good source of collagen. So that's a good joint support. And,
Right.
and
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
yeah, so collagen is super excellent. So I've been doing that for quite some time.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense. I got some good. I'm glad you're on today. I know because I have one. The dogs are picky, but they've told me that the older one, he's 6, Golden Yorkie, and that he's allergic to chicken. And so we stopped feeding him. You know, I look at everything. If it's got chicken in it, I don't get it for him. But I'm not sure that that's what he's allergic to. You know.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I might have to get.
there may be hormones and all kinds of stuff in there because of the feed, and
Yeah.
you just don't know what they're eating.
Okay.
And so that's going to, I mean, look at what we eat and what kind of
Yeah.
problems we end up with. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing with them.
yeah, and
Okay.
I think your vet can do some kind of blood work, right? They can do some testing, allergy testing.
They can. You have to be careful with that, though. A lot of the veterinarians are, when they go through veterinarian school, the dog food companies sponsor, so they're kind of not educated on raw feeding to begin with.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah, they're
veterinarians
predisposed to
don't
certain
know.
brands.
Yeah, and I'm not
Yeah.
going to mention any of those brands, but
Yeah.
they sell them in their office, and a lot of times those are, it's a it's not the best food for
Yeah.
them.
Right. Right.
Well, there's like only one company that really owns and produces most of the the kibbles and things like that also. And that's what I read somewhere, that there's only like one, maybe two large real producers. And so it just comes out under different brand names.
Yeah, that's true. And
Okay.
that's why there's recalls, and there's a lot of consistent recalls on kibble.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen a recall on a raw, but the
Okay.
veterinarians really don't, because when they're in school, they're not taught anything about that. So they don't really know, which is not really their fault. It's just how it's structured.
And what about rawhide chews?
Yeah, those are pretty bad.
Are they? See, and my
Yeah,
dog
those are,
lived on those, and we didn't know any better
well, you didn't
because,
know back then.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because
she
What's a
knew
good,
Rory, so poor Rory.
I was
But
going to say that's Rory.
that's right. And and he could eat one of those big ones a day.
Well, and there's so much.
what's a
They
good
love
chew
them.
for them?
Well,
What's a good
they
chew
have.
for 'em?
So the name is not coming to me right now, and they're super expensive, but they're bully sticks. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
they're expensive though.
Yes, they
So,
are. Yeah.
but they've got good ingredients, and
Okay.
I haven't done rawhide for a long time, but I didn't know any better either. Pig's ears are also bad.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Our
So,
shepherd used to love those.
Yeah.
oh
And ours
yeah,
like the ones that had the beet or the brine on them, and that was bad too.
yeah. Well, and people food is a problem in some households where they're given people food, and that's really not, their stomachs are not set up for that, and their digestive system is different from ours in that they can process protein, but they can't process gluten. So,
Mhm.
that just doesn't even make sense to have,
Okay.
some of the grains in those foods.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's true. And we had to get 20 pounds off of our dog Bud because
Wow.
he was a Rottie lab mix, and he was having hip dysplasia problems, and he was huge. And you would think my gosh, you would think, we cut back how much we were feeding him and you thought he was starving to death. And so they said, well, you
That would
can
have been
supplement
Ranger.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They said you can
You're
supplement it.
you're
And I said, well,
starving
what
me
can
to
we give him?
death.
Yeah, I know. And I don't like to give people food because that's not for them. But he said we could give them carrots. And oh, they loved carrots. They love carrots.
Oh yeah.
And we got them. And he said we could also give them rice cakes because it would be kind of a filler. I mean, there was no calories in either one of them, but it would make them feel full and they wouldn't act like they were starving to death. And it turned into a treat. I had one dog I was trying to get the weight off of, but all 4 of them would line up for their rice cakes and their carrots, and that was
How
their
funny is
after
that?
meal snack. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So, Linda, Dr. Vicki, we're kind of out of time here. I feel like we've just scratched the surface especially on the veterinary side of it. We really haven't talked about the chiropractic side of it. I'm wondering if you would come back for another time with us.
I would
Sure.
love to have you come back.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Awesome.
would be awesome. I would love to. There's when you get talking about animals, it just an endless topic.
Yeah, the time flies. We all
Yep.
love our dogs and cats and our pets, and I think people forget that some of the things that are available to us as human beings are available to their pets
Yep.
and
Yep.
are helpful to them and
Yeah.
not harmful.
Well, people, they don't know that chiropractic for animals is a thing. And I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, well, and I have several referral sources here in Denver and they're like, well, doc, told me to call you and I never knew it was a thing. And I hear that all the time. So I don't know. It just doesn't register, I guess.
I guess people just don't think about it. And maybe because they're thinking about it in the old-fashioned way where you're physically adjusting like you physically adjust a person instead of with the tools that you use. Because in my mind, the first time I heard about, because we took Rory to the chiropractor once, and I thought for sure, I had to muzzle him because I thought for sure he was going to bite him because I thought he was going to do, manual adjustment. And I thought that's not going to go over very well, but he needed it.
You'll have that sometimes.
Yeah.
I imagine.
So, Dr. Vicki, we will have you back for a second episode because I think we're just scratching the surface. And
Yes, I believe so.
More.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for your time, and it was great to visit with you today.
It was awesome to have you.